I am joined by my brothers from other mothers. Marcus Ferrel, how you doing, man?
No, I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Excited about today's episode. Obviously, a lot of people in the chat rooms are excited about it since last night, since you announced it yesterday. Mondale, how you doing, man?
What's up, brother? It's another day, and the work is here to be done.
Another day's journey. I appreciate it, man.
Indeed.
We are just out here grinding in these streets. We are excited because today is the Speak Truth to Power episode, but we speak truth to power in every single episode. This episode, we are excited to be joined later on this in the morning by Dr. Cornel West. Fellas, what's on your mind this morning? Shout out to everyone in the chat room. Good morning, K Love, Missy Rise, Miss High Rise rather, Munt Koshire, Shelby. YouTube is checking in, Facebook is checking in, Twitch is checking in, all over the place. Besides the interview this morning, anything y'all watching in the news? What's going on around the world?
Yeah, man. A lot's going on around the world. We about to have. I mean, it's the military, but still, we're about to have the first black general to run the Pentagon.
Mm,
Joe Biden just named. Well, he's gonna nominate Lord Austin
mm,
to be to lead the Pentagon. It was a good day to be black yesterday. Black woman Jones is about to take over MSNBC starting February the 1st. That's a
mm.
wonderful way to start Black history. I mean, she's been around anyways, like a vice president and running like breaking news session anyway. But the fact that she's gonna be the CEO of MSNBC,
Yeah,
it's pretty dope. Pretty dope day to be black yesterday.
I saw that. I saw that. What did you make of all that, Marcus?
Lauren, I mean, what is his name? It's not Lauren Michaels. What's the brother's name who current Phil
Phil, dang it if you
yeah,
hadn't asked, the current president of MSNBC.
yeah. I think Phil has ran MSNBC like a white guy, right?
Yep.
I mean, if you think about where America is and where MSNBC is, I mean, this is no offense to him, but I mean, I guess as somebody pointed out in our chat room yesterday about Barack defending Barack Obama, even though I don't agree with him, maybe it's just he was a man of his times, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the roster of black talent that's been on MSNBC and how they haven't received shows at the same rate, right? Like how they haven't received, like if it's MSNBC has just been sort of, I guess, problematic in some ways. And I was just on it this weekend, and I never really turned down an opportunity to do it, but like they have done things to keep black voices like not centered. They had Joanne Reed, the most talented anchor over there, on the
Mm-hmm.
weekend show for years before she finally got her own show. So, and then I think about like all the segments and all the people that have been sort of quietly taken off the air because you might
Mm-hmm.
have said the wrong thing, right? I hopefully this sister that comes and replaces Phil is not, has a better lens of race, and also won't make decisions because, I won't make decisions that hurt people. That's it. And
Mm.
actually get a good full representative roster over there at MSNBC.
That's true. I was thinking the same thing. The audience reminded us the name is Phil Griffin. He's the
Phil Griffin.
president of MSNBC, so he's on his way out, and a black woman is coming in to replace, a Rashida Jones is coming in to replace Phil Griffin at MSNBC. Do you think there's going to be any significant change in the lineup or the spirit of MSNBC now that Rashida Jones is going to be taking the lead on it?
Yeah, definitely.
You,
I mean, I mean, unless if you replace a black woman a white man who identifies as a white man with a black woman who really identifies as a black woman. I mean, I
mm,
don't know her politics, right? So I don't, but we know that Phil played his cards close to his chest
mm,
when it came down to uh I mean, you got to think about it, right? Like some of the most insane neoliberal moments have happened on MSNBC,
mm-hmm,
and folks have been allowed to come back. Meanwhile, some of the most peaceful statements about
mm,
progressive politics have been banned from that doggone network because you had nervous there, right? So
Absolutely.
right. So
But let me just jump in there real quick. We do have Dr. West in the waiting room. He is setting up his camera and whatnot. I just want to let the audience know that Professor West is in the building. And as soon as he gives me the thumbs up, we'll bring him on the screen to join the conversation. But I don't know. I'm like you, Marcus. I don't know. Okay, actually, we got the thumbs up. So let's rock and roll.
okay. Sorry.
Coming to the program, to Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap is the professor, philosopher, author, and activist, none other than the distinguished Professor Cornel West, joining Political Thirst Trap, Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap. How are you this morning, Professor?
I tell you, I salute you three brothers. You all been bearing witness, telling the truth.
Yeah.
It's a blessing to be back on with you again. I can tell you that.
Absolutely, and we're ecstatic. I'm personally excited to have you. I know this is your second time on Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap. I wasn't a part of the team when you first came, so this is my first time. So I just want to put on the record that it is an esteemed privilege to have you to chop it up this morning about all of these issues. Marcus and Mondale, they're in the house. Gentlemen, I know a lot on your mind that you've been talking about that you want to speak with Dr. West about. So just jump in there, Marcus.
Hey, well, welcome back to the show, Dr. West. I appreciate you.
Always a blessing, always a blessing. I can tell you that.
Your fellowship and your mentorship has been amazing to me in my career. So I will publicly hug you, give you roses, and love you up as long as I know you, my brother. So I did want to start off with sort of a softball question. The last time that you were on Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap, your ethos of your statement was something like this right here. You said, "I'd much rather a neoliberal than a neo-fascist, and on election day, I plan on drinking some cognac and go ahead and casting my vote for Biden." Now that those things we've sort of almost finished getting rid of the neo-fascists, and we're with the neoliberal, and you've drank your cognac and you voted for Joe Biden, or did you? Maybe you want to catch us up to where your mind was election day and how you feeling going into the inauguration.
No, but it's true. I followed through on the anti-fascist coalition, but I didn't want to tell no lies about the neoliberal milquetoast Democrat who is committed he played a fundamental role in 4 crimes against humanity: mass incarceration, invasion, occupation of Iraq, unleashing Wall Street greed with the repeal of Glass-Steagall, and the uncritical and unequivocal support of the vicious Israeli occupation of Palestinian brothers and sisters. Those are 4 crimes against humanity that Biden has been fundamentally committed to. And that's part and parcel what people mean by neoliberal. I know they throw that term around, all right, but neoliberal basically just means a political project of the liberal wing of the ruling class of the American empire that crushes poor and working people disproportionately: black, red, yellow, brown, and poor white. So it's just a matter, again, of just telling that truth, though, brother. Definitely. So yeah, you're right. I took my little sip of cognac, but I didn't really sip that much because I didn't have that much time to. I didn't need that much time to refortify myself. I wasn't gonna fall for no illusions. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Dr. West, what's up, brother?
My dear brother. How you doing there, man?
Man, I'm nappy and black as always. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see with all 3 of y'all, man. Y'all just don't know the forces for good that you really are in terms of telling the truth. Because people out here hungry and thirsty for the truth. They want the real thing, and all these semblances and simulacras and copies and posing and posturing folk only concerned with their careers and the next opportunity. Usually they ain't got nothing to do with truth and justice.
Right.
Indeed.
The 3 of y'all stand for that in a deep way, and I just want to let you all know that I'm speaking on behalf of thousands and thousands of folk. I'm telling you, but I'm sorry to interrupt, my brother. You go right ahead.
Nah, man. Whenever you're talking, it ain't no interruption. And sometimes, we don't talk like white people talk all the time.
That's just when we talk. That's just when we interrupt each other. The only interruptions when we. But you have a pass. You have a squirrel gang pass to interrupt us at any point. Go ahead, Mark.
Whenever you get ready. Listen, we find ourselves in a unique space, brother. We are black men. Everybody on this panel, and the world continues to tell lies based on an exit poll about how we voted this cycle. When we know, especially folk on this panel who are directly connected, deeply connected to Black men and our lived experiences. And great example is what happened in Georgia. We turned out a lot of brothers that Barack Obama or no other Democrat could turn out in the past 5 federal elections, presidential or midterm. And when I say a lot, I'm talking 144,000 in the that had never voted in a primary and 91,000 who had never voted in a general election. What say you to people who are still practicing these same old traditional tactics to play politics right now, even though we see this untraditional number of Black men voting this election cycle?
I mean, one is that it's true what you say in terms of Black male participation and Black community as a whole, but specifically Black male participation. But the important thing to keep in mind is that, the system itself has a rot at the center of it. So we got a whole lot of brothers who see that rot and don't vote it out.
Mm-hmm.
Do not vote whatsoever. And because you do not vote doesn't mean that you're apathetic. It just means when you see the rot, you don't want to participate because you got one life to live. Now, I'm not justifying them. I figure that Black people in general, we always have to work with what we got with our backs against the wall, trying to do what we can to tell the truth and bear witness to justice. But we got to put this thing in a larger context. See, the problem is, and this is what you all do vis-a-vis the corporate media. See, the corporate media just jump in and stay on the surface like a little dog peddling in the water. Whereas you got to get deep into that water and see what the real dynamics are. See what the real ways in which people are being subjugated, lied on, and character assassination, what the issues people don't want to talk about. And a lot of the brothers in the barbershop, a lot of the brothers on the corner, a lot of brothers in the churches, they see that the system itself is just so truncated and so narrow that it has no interest in really reforming itself in such a way that it speaks to the suffering and the social misery in the Black community. And this raises a deep problem of Black leadership. This is why we have such a colossal failure of Black leadership. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Now, I'm talking about the intellectuals, I'm talking about the preachers, I'm talking about the politicians, the levels of careerism and opportunism, the levels of posing and posturing. Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, they turning over in their grave. What happened to this Negro political class? What happened to this Negro middle class? What happened to this Negro professional class? They part of the rot too. They just want to get in on the booty too. But I say booty, I mean the benefits.
The treasure,
like the pirates. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You see, that's not our tradition. You see, if that is our tradition, we'd have had Black versions of Pat Boone rather than Curtis Mayfield.
Right.
Yeah.
See, you speaking. Already it is 8:38, and we just getting started. And Dr. West is already dropping truth bombs this morning. So wake up, everybody who's watching. Shout out to everyone in the chat room. Dr. West, a lot of love coming from the chat room. A lot of people who respect your work and all of your efforts over the years. One of the first pieces of content that I ever wrote was a critique of your critique of Barack Obama somewhere back around 2009.
He ain't know no better.
You picked up on it a lot quicker than most of America. Now, Marcus, we ain't gonna talk about the fact that you got your Barack Obama magazine underneath your pillow mattress at night. Now, let's
you gotta know your enemy.
Come on, you gotta. No, come on, bro.
I'm not writing book reviews over that Negro. Okay.
So we not gonna have a competition of who was woke on Barack Obama first, because we know it was Dr. Cornel West, right? We know it's Dr. West. But what I came to find out really quickly, almost as quickly as your critique of him, when he appointed Timothy Geithner. Right, when he appointed Rahm Emanuel, you saw really on in the Obama administration the direction that he was going. Would you talk about the difficulty that you have faced over the years, being one of the lone voices? A lot of people are catching up to you now, but you were one of the lone voices bringing a reasoned and rational critique of President Obama as he was president. And now that couldn't have been difficult as a Black man speaking about the first Black president.
No, it's true, because I mean, the first time I really even heard about Obama was when he gave this speech in Boston saying that America was a magical place. I said, he's going to have a Christopher Columbus experience. He gonna have a deep Christopher Columbus. He gonna discover America and recognize that there's a rod at the center of it. There's an ugliness at the center of it, and there's some beautiful people in the country. But this notion of the magical president, I said, and also as a voluntary immigrant or coming out of the experience of a voluntary immigrant is very different for those of us who've been Jim Crowed, enslaved, Jane Crowed, lynched, and everything else. But it's still just a matter of the truth. So then when I said that on television, he gave me a call. He said, well, why would you say that? I said it because I believe it, man. I ain't playing no games, you know. And he said, well, would you support me? I said, but I don't know your policy. So we talked for a number of hours. I said, what is your relation to the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer? That was my question. And that had to do with poverty, militarism. That had to do with the deep racisms of various kinds, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia. And it had to do with materialism. Are you in it just for yourself? Are you willing to sell your soul for a mess of pottage and think that somehow you can conquer the world and lose your soul? I come out of the biblical tradition. I'm proud of that. You know, that's who I am. Was another way of saying, are you willing to follow Jesus into the temple and run out the money changers, or do you want to be a money changer? I mean, that's the fundamental question. If you're gonna be on Pontius Pilate's payroll, then you ain't gonna be a follower.
Man,
out in Pharaoh's court, then you ain't gonna be with Moses. Don't call yourself Joshua. Joshua was a fighter. Joshua didn't get to the promised land all by himself or with a few partners. He brought the people with him. Yeah. See, that's our tradition. It seems to me at its best. So I was just telling him, I'm just one small moment in the tradition of a great people. Man, we ain't playing games. And so it was a rich dialogue. And I said, I'll be a critical Socratic supporter. And I did those 75 events with him. We coached him for dialogue. Charles Ogletree, who's one of the fundamental figures in his formation, not mentioned in the book. See, that's sad. See, when you reach that level of international status and you can't remember the people who actually push you through. Well, no, you remember Jeremiah Wright, who kept your marriage together. You remember Jeremiah Wright, who actually baptized your children and then go trash him and talking about he's a light-skinned black man looking for street credibility. Hey, man, sometimes the splinter in the eye, in your own eye, is the biggest magnifying glass.
Come on, man.
Yourself. You the one looking for street credibility. You the one concerned about your status. Let's just be honest about that. But I liked him because he had a certain brilliance and poise about him. But the crucial change took place. You raised the right question, brother. When he brought in the Wall Street folk, the Reubenites, Larry Summers, and of course we already had a fight with Larry Summers. When he came to Harvard, he met with every head of the department rather than Afro-American Studies. And Skip said, how come he skipped over us? I said, don't look like he got too much respect for us. And then within the next month, he brings me in and trashes me for hanging out with Al Sharpton, putting out a hip-hop album. I said, brother, I am the man you think you are. I'm as much Harvard as you. What are you talking about? You got the wrong Negro up in here. If I want to work with the ballet, if I want to work with classical music, if I want to work with hip hop, I do I'm a free man. I've been trained here like everybody else, and I'm as free as you are, even more. So we have to be in class. But then you turn to the book. What does Brother Barack say? Well, Larry Summers doesn't do things out of malice. He does it because it's just oblivious. Like he's too smart to be nice. I say, don't rationalize this brother's gangster behavior.
Come on now.
What are you talking about?
Hey, Dr. Webb.
What was it about Geithner? What was it about Summers and others? They were extensions of Wall Street interests. That's why when he had the meeting in March of 2009, he sat there with 13 Wall Street folk, and what did he say? He said, I stand between you and the pitchfork. I want you to know I am on your side. I will protect you. No, that's what you say to poor people. Right. That's what you say to black people. That's what you say to working people. I'm on your side. I will protect you. That's what it is to follow Jesus into the temple and run out the money changers. Money changers don't need protection. They don't need rationalization. They don't need black people rationalizing them when they've been crushing black people for 400 years. What kind of human being are you? What kind of spine you really got? What kind of backbone you got, brother?
Brother.
Hey, Dr.
My brother, he's a magnificent father. He got wonderful
Yeah.
Dr. West, I got a question
and
for you,
Michelle
Dr.
and
West.
so forth. But everybody got to be measured by a moral and spiritual criteria.
That's it. That's it.
All
Dr.
of us
West.
in some sense fail, but we ain't gonna be living a lie.
Mm,
And when
mm.
you live in a lie and people are looking to you as the model, you end up reproducing the worst in them because all they want is just the spectacle and no spiritual substance.
That's
All
it.
they want is the status and no serious courage.
Mm,
And that's what we end up doing. You see, you got a whole generation looking to him. What I remember I used to see young brothers and sisters with a shirt on, Malcolm, Martin, and Obama. This is a Keith Sweat moment. Something just ain't right.
He said it's the Keith Sweat moment.
Yes, ain't
They
right.
don't belong on the same shirt.
He said it's a Keith Sweat moment.
They don't belong on the same shirt.
they don't belong on the.
People say, well, you trashing Obama. I'm not trashing Obama. He was a particular kind of politician, but as a politician, you can't pose as if you're speaking the truth and bearing justice. And the same was true with the drones. When he brought in Brennan had been supporting state-sponsored terrorism for many, many years, supporting torturing. What did he do with the tortures? Let the torturers go. Oh, so the Wall Street gangsters, none of them go to jail, and yet brothers and sisters on the block going to jail like I don't know what for little crack bags and marijuana and everything else. And then at the same time, the torturers don't go to jail.
Exactly.
And then you expanding the drones. I had called George Bush a war criminal when he had 45 drones that had killed 118 people. Brother Obama got 563 drones, killed thousands of people and children and women. Those are war crimes. Those are war crimes. In the name of Jesus, they're war crimes. They ain't got nothing to do with just me.
Well, we got to have church in here. Yeah, keep
It's
like.
true. They got to do with the vision and the fire in me. I can't.
Yeah.
How can you not tell the truth when people are getting killed like that?
Right.
A baby in Yemen, a baby in Pakistan, a baby in Somalia got the same value as those white babies in Connecticut you were crying about. They got the same value as a black baby, same value as an indigenous baby, same value as a baby in Ethiopia, anywhere else. I learned that in Vacation Bible School.
Come on,
Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world, red and yellow,
Red and yellow.
black and white. They are precious in his sight. That's not just cliche.
Yes, sir.
That's something to live. And if you take that seriously, then it means that you got to quit killing folk.
That's it.
Hey, Dr. West, I got a question for you, sir. So first, just two things. If you got some good stuff to say about Barack Obama, that's the first question. Do you got? And then it's the second question also. Last week you watched our Barack Obama episode.
Yeah, that
right?
was strong. That was strong.
See, hey, Trap Squad, somebody does like us. So
you were mainly talking about Brother Skip, you see.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess
Skip in the house. I'm living in the same house as Skip was living at that time.
Really?
Well, I hope you don't have the same interaction with the same white cop.
Right now. I'm in that pad right now.
Oh man!
Wow. Okay, so Dr. West, number one, if you could try to name off a couple things that you like about the brother Barack, and number two, like we said last week, you weren't in the conversation with us, but the timing of Barack's statements last week when it comes down to defund the police and he's not in the streets, and also him, as Mondale pointed out last week, him working with telling the Bucks and the basketball players to stop protesting, right? So
bring LeBron in like that. Jesus Christ. This was a moment for a massive strike, massive boycott, send a message all around the country and the world, and you come in and deodorize that kind of funk, sanitize that kind of action.
So give me three things you can say that's great about Barack Obama.
Oh, I mentioned before, I think he's a magnificent father. It's a beautiful thing to see him with his daughters. Very much so. One of the daughters are here at Harvard. She's magnificent. And I think that he and Michelle have a wonderful relationship from what I could see. That's a beautiful thing to see. There's no doubt about that. That's number two. You said you got three of them.
Yeah, one more. I said
You,
five, but I
you
was
called him.
trying
You called him brilliant. You called him brilliant already.
That's right. He's brilliant. He got poise. You know what I mean? But the problem is, you see, when you got that Manchurian-like quality that allows you to be used by powers that be, which means if you don't have enough backbone, if you're always looking for the yellow line in the middle, you're going to end up actually being unable to use the gifts that God has given you to be a great servant that you can be. Because the people know you're always looking for the middle, for the central, for the some kind of premature compromise. I mean, I used to say about Brother Barack Obama, he likes to punt on second down. You see, you don't punt on second down in football. You punt on the line.
Dog.
Wow.
That almost slid right past me. I almost missed that one. God.
You punt on, that's what he did with healthcare, right? He punted on the second down. He sit down there and meet with big pharmaceutical companies and big private insurance companies and don't push all four downs to see how go as far as you can go. And then you tell the people, I fought for you. I did what I can do. This is the best I can come up with. But when you punt on the second down, people already know that you flimsy, or what you got the moral flabbiness. That's the word that the great Sinclair Drake uses in Black Metropolis. The moral flabbiness. We got too many leaders who are morally flabby in that sense. They don't have no backbone. They don't want to stand up for the people. They will stand up for Wall Street. They'll stand up for the Pentagon. They'll stand up for Israeli occupation of Palestinians, but they won't stand up for their own people. You see, there's something pathological about that in the spiritual sense. You see what I mean? And we just have to call that for what it is. But to go on, it looks like Barack Obama can play some serious basketball. You know.
That's number 4. Is that number 4?
That's cool. That's cool.
Dr. West, just because you got a set jumping on me, you can play basketball. You still got to pass the rock. Maybe he's a good one-on-one player. I mean, that's what his policies look like anyway. Listen, we have our fair share of critiques for Obama, and I think we owe it to ourselves and our history to do that, because if not, we'll have a fake history and a fake understanding for the next president that may look like us if that happens in our lifetime, or if it doesn't. I mean, history needs to document folk screaming about the wrongs of Barack Obama. What say you about a man who so easily? I mean, we know the place of the black church, and I have no problem with any church, but there's a real church, like I'm talking about in the protest strategy. I tell people all the time, black Christianity and white Christianity might be different denominations. And the protest of the black church is what Reverend Jeremiah represents. So for Barack Obama to turn his back on him, because I was like Ben too. I kind of gave him a pass on that, and I was upset with you early when you came out. So I won't be.
You used to work for the man. That's why.
No. No, I ain't worked for him. I never took a check for the Democratic Party, my friend. Ever.
Well, that's the joke. That's the joke that Marcus told me. I'm just repeating the joke that I heard. Marcus sitting here quiet, knowing he's the one.
Why you bringing me into this? I'm over here sitting quietly innocent. He's trying to start. Dr. West. He's trying to start beef between me and Mondale.
I ain't trying to start no beef. I'm just trying to give context. Go ahead, Marcus. Mondale.
It's fine to mention a joke. Let's make sure people know it's an LOL at the end.
It is a joke. It is a joke. Go ahead.
But yeah. So let's talk about the black church. Let's talk about James Cone and Barack Obama. Not to me, Barack Obama's Christianity doesn't seem like it comes from the cross and the lynching tree. So can we talk about the importance of understanding Christ in that context and how it might be missing in his entire understanding? And I credit it to him loving his white grandparents and not having that natural skepticism of whiteness that we do. I don't have a built-in trust for white people. I had to learn to trust some of them, but not all of them, because the way I was raised and what America has done to me. So just talk to me.
I was looking for my book on Jim Cone, because he's one of the great towering theologians of the 21st century. But he himself is part of the prophetic tradition of the black church. Now, when you look at the history of black people, look at it this way. You know, when I was coming along on the chocolate side of Sacramento, Shiloh Baptist Church, we were told every other week, if the kingdom of God is within you, then everywhere you go, you ought to leave a little heaven behind.
Mm-hmm.
And all black people have had, for the most part, is our heaven behind leaving capacity. Grandmama left some heaven behind in us. Mama and daddy left some heaven behind. Heaven takes a lot of different forms. There's Socratic heavens. You learn how to think for yourself. You see, there's a more Jesus-centered heaven when you learn how to love your neighbor and even your enemy. You see, and the black church has been the institutional site where black people gain some access to some heaven. It could be in the song. It could be in the preacher's voice. It could be in the style that the ushers walk in their uniform. It could be in the touch of the deaconess, of the little girl who comes to believe in herself. And I'm talking about this, my autobiography. That's where Aretha comes from. That's where Marvin Gaye comes from. That's where Donny Hathaway comes from.
That's it.
That's where Gladys Knight comes from. That's where Coltrane comes from. All that beauty, all that truth, all that justice. Now, our Muslim brothers and sisters, they got their own versions of that too. Our black Jewish brothers and sisters, they got that version of that too. But the black church was the dominant institutional site. Now, as many people moved through the black church, many began to reject certain beliefs of the black church. Of course, you don't have to have cognitive commitment to the dogma to be influenced by the spiritual richness and the cultural depths of the church.
Right.
But the problem has been, just like in any other sphere of a predatory capitalist civilization, that everybody's up for sale, everything is up for sale. So the church got up for sale.
Yeah.
So that the pastor became a CEO, the choir became a praise team, and it became more about status and money than it did about service and sacrifice to the least of these, service to the most vulnerable in that way. So in a commodified culture, you get commodified religion. And that's what you basically got in the last 50 years. When I read God Is Not a Republican, I appreciate that, brother. That's about 8 years ago. I appreciated that book. Absolutely.
You read my book?
Lord, yeah. 2012 when it came out, man. That was serious.
You got to forgive me, Dr. West.
Complacent. We're not going to be complicitous. We got a conception of God that's not reducible to all of this right-wing, commodified.
Now,
Dr.
Marcus,
West,
hang on.
we ain't never gonna have to talk him down from that tree.
You never gonna live that down.
Never coming back down.
No, let me tell you something. Dr. West read my book when it came out in 2012. Hot damn, I'm somebody. I feel like Jesse Jackson this morning. I am somebody. You are somebody. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, Ben Dixon got his book read by Dr. Cornel West. To that end, then, Professor West. Okay, I'm sorry. No. Everybody in the chat room, do me a favor. If you're not driving, hit that like button. We don't want you to swerve or take any risk while you're driving. Keep the phone out of your hands. But we have Professor Cornel West on our episode this morning, and so we need to have as many likes as we have people watching. We have over 1,000. We have over 1,200 people watching on Facebook and YouTube alone. And so we want you to participate by hitting that like button. That said, one of the things I've been thinking about recently, Professor West, and I like your input on this, is what it's going to take for humanity not to destroy itself and for humanity to survive in the long run. And it really, unfortunately, hinges on the path of America because of how interconnected America is, both economically and in terms of the American empire. Which brings it down to, if America can survive, then perhaps humanity can survive, which brings it down to the least of these in America, right? So what I believe is that black folks, because of our unique position in the historical arc of America, I believe our fight against white supremacy really signifies the victories that we need to overcome American capitalism, American imperialism, and to overcome our propensity as a species to destroy ourselves. Would you speak on the connection between black liberation and the salvation of humanity in general?
Wow, that's you over here asking some
Well, you
profound
read my book,
questions.
so I said, let me come up with the best
Man,
question I can come up with.
all three of you, Lord, Lord, Lord. No, I think that these three questions: does the species have the cultivated capacity to avoid self-destruction, given the ecological catastrophe, overwhelming greed, overwhelming avarice? Does the American empire have the capacity to treat poor and working people with decency, given its predatory capitalist orientation? And does the black bourgeoisie have the capacity to actually speak up on behalf of the black poor and black working classes? Or all three of them shot through with so much rot and decadence that it leads toward very, very grim conclusions? And for me, those are open questions. Those are the open questions. The legacy of Marcus Garvey was Garvey used to say, what? As long as the masses of black people in America, they'll lead lives of ruin and disaster. He's proven right so far. I'm not talking about the black middle class. I'm talking about everyday people. Garvey was right in that regard, right? Malcolm said America didn't have the capacity. Du Bois himself, when he left, he said, I'm going to Ghana. I got to have an international stage because the American empire is too caught into its own lies about itself and too tied to greed and this truncated conception of an American dream for some. And it's true that it's corporate greed that is leading toward the possibility of ecological catastrophe, calling into question the planet itself. So that those are questions that sit in all of our closets. It's just that, we don't have abstract responses to those questions. We got to live a life. We only got so many years in time and space. And the question becomes, what kind of human being do you choose to be between your mama's womb and the tomb waiting for you?
Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody.
And when you put it in that way, I said, no, I'm going to love my kids. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to go down loving black people and loving poor people. And I don't know what the consequence is, but whatever the circumstance, this the kind of witness I'm going to bear, given the kind of calling I got from the God that I serve.
My.
Preach, man. Go ahead, Marcus.
And that's all we can say, but we have to be honest about those questions.
Right.
And that's the difficult thing. Because see, most people would rather live in the midst of illusion rather than shatter the illusions and be in connection with the realities. That's what I love about Ashford and Simpson. Ain't nothing like the real thing. Ain't nothing like the real thing, you see. Have you ever tried it for yourself, or are you still getting it secondhand from somebody else? That's Nick. And
Professor, you said something right there. Marcus, I would toss it to you, but you said something there that I got to highlight. You said that people would rather live in an illusion than to face the real thing. And I think that's the fundamental question of who's going to be a good faith actor or not. Can you handle the truth or not?
That's
Marcus, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah,
that's real. See, that's precisely why the best of our tradition are funk masters. And we refuse to fake the funk. And if you're going to deodorize the funk and stay on the surface and be superficial, then go on and live your opportunistic life, but don't drag the truth with you. Just know the truth is indicting you as you live a lie.
Wow.
See, James Brown's music is not living a lie. The funk is the funk. That's true for Bob Marley down in Jamaica. It's true for Fela in Nigeria. The funk is the funk. And the funk means what? Joy and pain that Frankie Beverly was talking about. The funk
sunshine
means
and
what?
rain.
The truth about ourselves, that's painful. The truth about our people, our community, that's painful. But it's painful because there's also power in it. And you take that pain and transform it into a spiritual power, a cultural power that has political consequences.
That's it.
But once you lose your spirit and start faking your funk, you're going to end up with phony politics.
That's it.
You're going to end up with folks speaking lies, hiding crimes, and you're leading folk over a cliff. And that's the worst thing you could ever do.
Dr. West, I know you've been following these the administration's picks, right, for who's going to be serving in
Oh
certain
yeah,
cabinet positions, right?
yeah,
And I mean, I like to call a spade, right? And I like to
that's right.
say, I, I'm a big fan of saying don't believe my lying ass lies, but I do believe my lying ass lies. So in my opinion, the media, and this is mostly mainstream media, has been touting the diversity within the new administration and all the cabinet picks, right? And some picks are good because of the professionalized aspect of what these people have done in their past, and some folks is just a hard pass on some of these positions that we're starting to see get filled out. So my question for you is, what do you think about what you're seeing as towards the hiring of folks, and especially since they keep touting people of color and black folks and women? What do you think about, is this going to be the third Obama administration, or is this going to be something specifically better than that, or is it going to be worse? What do you think from the picks that are coming out of DC right now?
Yeah, it doesn't look too good though. But again, we knew though, by pushing out the neo-fascist gangster, we were trying to avoid this overwhelming catastrophe. But here comes the disaster. And I think at the moment it looks as if it's a disaster. Because see, when you have the rot, the question becomes, are you going to redirect the rot and try to slow the rot down? Or are you going to lie and deny the rot because you think the rot was only the neo-fascist wing of the ruling class, which was Trump. So they think now they can do away with Trump. They go back to normal and don't realize the normal had the rot in it in a deep way, but it just takes a neoliberal form. And so what we end up with is the recycling of the Clintonites, the recycling of the Obamites in the Biden administration. And you can see very clearly that they carry with them the same ties to Wall Street. They carry with them the same ties to the not just the Pentagon, but the war profiteers. Look at Brother Lloyd Austin. I love Brother Lloyd. He's straight out of Jim Crow, Alabama. You know what I mean? But he's a major figure in the U.S. empire, that he facilitated as a commander the invasion and occupation of the Iraqi people. That's a crime against humanity. That's 500,000 people dead. They'll never talk about the Iraqis dead in the U.S. press, as if they're not human beings like everybody else.
Right.
Based on a lie. You see, he's working for Raytheon right now on the board of directors. What's Raytheon? They're war profiteers. So that on the one hand, you say, well, it's nice to have a black brother who's now going to be at the higher echelons of the empire because racism has been overcome. But what is the role of the persons in these new positions? That becomes a fundamental question. Same is true with our dear sister from Baker, Louisiana. I love that sister. She's a brilliant sister. She's a beautiful sister. What are they going to do? They're going to send her to the United Nations to justify U.S. policies, including vicious Israeli occupations of Palestinian lands and people. But you put a blackface on it, it's going to be harder to criticize.
Yep.
I want to push back a little bit on you, brother, just to point out that. All right, just to point out the fact that we know election has consequences. There was no way we were going to have a progressive dream with Biden's appointments. So our hope as progressives was to prevent us from having a progressive nightmare. And I felt like we did that. And to say that we didn't with these appointments, I mean, we don't have, Rahm is not in the administration because of progressives screaming about this. Sumner's is not in his administration because of progressive screaming. True. So I gotta say that overall, the picks of this nomination, because we knew he was a neoliberal, we knew Bernie wasn't going to lead the Labor Department. We knew that. We knew Warren wasn't going to be in charge of economics. He saw the fights that Elizabeth Warren gave Barack Obama, and he wasn't ready for that. I mean, so let's just say that we're happy that we don't have to fight the nightmare that we try to prevent, because we did. We got what we were expecting. And diversity in the sake of diversity is not a victory for anybody, but we can say that we ain't got to fight the Wall Street bigwigs like we did in Obama's administration. There's some we got to fight for sure, but this administration could have been a lot worse if Rahm would have been a part of it, if Sumner's would have been a part of it.
You are absolutely right, though, brother. But the challenge, my brother, for me is that, okay, we got Janet Yellen. Janet Yellen is a strong neoliberal. She's got concerns about stimulus. That is a positive thing. She's got concerns about unemployment. That is a positive thing. But what happened when she was chosen? Wall Street broke records.
Ain't that something?
Because they know in the end, all they have to expect is very, very weak regulation. And you see, this is where a lie comes in terms of defunding the police. And this is true for Obama and all of them. You see, when it comes to defunding the police, that's going to regulate Wall Street. They've already done that.
Right. Right.
The police is supposed to be regulating Wall Street gangsters.
They defunded them.
Major. Major. So they're not against defunding the police. They're against defunding certain police. Now the police who end up focusing on suppressing and containing poor black people, they want all the money in the world for that, just like they want all the money in the world for the wars. What is it? $6.5 trillion spent on war since 2001. And they say they're concerned about the budget. Please spare me. We were born at night, but not last night. You find $6.5 trillion. And what did they give Wall Street? Over $18 trillion with the QE. Just buying their toxic monies. They could have been putting that in community. They could have been paying reparations for black people.
That's it.
All those $1 trillion for those few banks. And where did it go? Where did it go? Did it go into working class? Did it go into poor community? So you're right, though, brother. We can take some credit in terms of it not being as bad or worse. But even the ones we ended up with Brother Lloyd and Sister Janet. And now Brother Pacero, he was for Medicare for all, right? Well, we gonna see. We gonna see how far he's willing to go on this. He voted against the Wall Street bailout. I stood with him. He's my home brother, too. He's from Sacramento. He went to McClatchy High. I went to Kennedy High. He's my Latino brother, right? Team. But once he gets inside of the system, we going to see. If they send him out to justify why we ought not to ever come close to Medicare for all, and he's been talking about Medicare for all these years, we say, oh, Lord, I see. He's been getting well adjusted to injustice too quickly here.
Dr. West, I want to ask you a question about let me just throw it out there and see what you could do with it. Because part of me, while I have everybody on this panel has a pretty robust critique of somebody like Barack Obama, and we couch it in general respect for the role that he plays in the black community, whether we agree with that role or not, we recognize that he's on grandmama's bookshelf, right, on her mantle. We recognize that. But I have two questions to that effect. Number one, what would we have expected of black people in America if not to ascend to the highest office in America, right? If what would we have expected differently from black folks? Because it seems like there's a burden on our back to not only be American, but to be the saviors of America at the same time. And what else were we supposed to do if we didn't pick up the mantle of being the savior of America, to save America from American imperialism, or if we didn't even know about that? Wouldn't it make sense for somebody like Barack Obama to ascend to the highest heights, and then for black people to celebrate him because he went through the channels that we were born in? We were born in this empire. So what else would we have done except for to obtain these positions in the Pentagon, in the White House, in neoliberalism, on Wall Street, as a hedge funder, as black folks?
Yeah, I think that, again, it's just a matter of people being truthful about the limits and constraints under which they find themselves. You see, look at the great black politicians, Harold Washingtons of Chicago. What did Harold Washington do that Obama didn't do? Well, the first thing Harold Washington did was he refused to dismantle his social movement outside of the system because he knew he needed pressure from them, given what would be coming at him in Chicago. And he knew the permanent government of any city is big business. So big business was going to be using their politicians to crush him. So he had the social movement outside to continually give him some wind at his back. And he still lost some battles and he won some others. Adam
Mhm.
Clayton Powell was the same way coming out of Harlem. So these are politicians. That's why Malcolm X could say, I can't stand the system, it's rotten to the core. I like Brother Adam. Why? Because Adam was telling the truth. He tell the people, this is what I'm up against, y'all. This is what I'm dealing with. But I'm loving you to death. I'm fighting for you. I can't deliver what I really want to deliver. I want to deliver freedom. I want to deliver equality. I can't do that as a politician, but I'm pushing, I'm getting some concessions. That's all politicians can ever do. Tell the people the truth.
Instead of wrapping it,
Wow.
instead of wrapping it into
Absolutely.
some archetype, some trope about being a super black man, just tell us the
Super
truth about what
black
you're doing
man
there.
and the great celebrity, and everybody
Yeah.
bows and kowtows before you, and you invite them to the White House, and they think somehow they
Yeah.
have come into paradise. No, that's the same White House built by African slaves, enslaved
Come on now.
Africans. It's the same White House that's dropping how many bombs? 25,000 bombs dropped every year during the Obama administration. People don't say a mumbling word. And Martin Luther King Jr. is telling us militarism is sucking the best out of the American empire. And nobody can say a word about it. They got Martin Luther King Jr.'s structure in the Oval Office. He's sitting there when they have the killer list. They choosing from the killer list as to who they gonna kill that week, including 3 American citizens with no due process. That's gangster activity. You don't kill folk just because you got political differences with them. See it up here around the world. You don't do that. But Israel just intervene and kill people in Iran. Who called that a criminal act? Did the New York Times say anything about that as a criminal act, a violation of international law? Hell no.
Nah.
Hell no.
Hell nah.
Everybody knows it's a gangster act. You don't go around killing folk in other countries because you disagree with them.
Come on.
Somebody from Brazil want to kill an American politician because they're a gangster. They got a lot of candidates who are gangsters. You don't be killing American politicians. That's wrong. That's a violation of act. That means that America can't do it. It means that England can't do it. It means that Ethiopia can't do it. It means that Israel can't do it. But no, people living a lie. They can't say a mumbling word about it being a violation of international law, a criminal act. Now, to give John Brennan credit, he's been tied to state-sponsored terrorism for most of his career from the U.S. side. He called it a criminal act. I give him credit for that. He stumbled on the truth.
How about that?
Stumbled on the truth.
That means that the drones that he's been tied to, that means that the policies he's been tied to are criminal acts too. Appreciate that, Brother Brennan. He was Obama's main man. And Bush's too. So it's just a matter of saying, you know, you got AFRICOM in Africa. You got 4,800 military units, 800 around the world. Russia and China together only got less than 30. And yet somehow we are scared of them as competing superpowers. Please, let's be honest. 57 cents of every dollar goes to the military, which means we don't have no money for education, don't have no money for health care, don't have no money for jobs with a living wage, don't have no money for decent housing. And we can't have a critique of that. Barbara Lee, Brother Bernie Sanders, and Brother Marcus knows about that. They call for a 10% decrease. It needs to be decreased about 40 or 50%.
Wow. Listen, I wanna tie a couple of things in. Something you said earlier. So I'm glad you're talking about decreasing the military. A lot of people believe that America's military is strong because of like this fear of our neighbors or across either water or either pond, right? When in actuality, it's tied to South Carolina's appetite for slavery, and people don't talk about that. The growth of the military started when South Carolina continued to bring in more slaves after, well, I should say Africans, and enslaved them, even against the neighbors from the north and west, saying, hey, you got to stop if you ain't sending your soldiers up. So I in that vein, I saw Clyburn introduce a bill to, you know, these people, you said they're not for defunding the police. This is what I want to tie it to. Clyburn and his people ain't really pushing for reparations, but he put forth the bill to give reparations basically to African Americans soldiers from World War II. As a veteran, I hear that, but I also think that's the easy way out. if you're pushing for reparations for soldiers who didn't get the GI Bill, who are long gone, and you're trying to give it to their grandparents, then why aren't you brave enough to push for Black folk who are descendants of slaves in this country?
Absolutely.
So I
Absolutely.
asked, what do you think about Brother Clyburn's? I'm gonna call it reparations for Black World War II veterans, but not for all of us.
Yeah, I think that, it's a strategic move because so many, too often our Black politicians, they kind of just want to check and see what the temperature is, because they love to be
Weather
thermometers rather than thermostats. They just want to reflect and see if they can diffuse it rather than exercise real leadership and shape it and guide it in that way. They know the reparations movement is on the move. You got Sister Yvette Cornel, Brother Antonio Moore with ADOS and the others raising their voices in a serious way. And that's a long tradition of reparations going all the way back to the Africans themselves. Mother Moore, Randall Robinson, Clarence Charles Ogletree. I've been part of the reparations movement for 40 years. Ron Daniels. We can go on and on and on. But it's clear that they don't really understand the depths of the truth and the justice of the reparation movement. If they were to read Brother William Dougherty and Sister Mullen's book, From Here to Equality, they would understand that there's three pillars of reparations. It's slavery, it's Jim Crow, which is American terrorism, and there's ongoing discrimination going on. So if they began a dialogue talking about just veterans, they figured, well, the white mainstream might have an openness to it, and therefore he can open the door. Okay, well, that's fine. But, truth and justice is not about just opening little doors in a narrow way. You got to hit it head on. You got to speak it head on. And so, so in that sense, again, a certain kind of concession is possible. But I don't know why people just don't want to accept the fundamental truths and fundamental commitments of justice in terms of what was done to Black folk and what kinds of responses to that unjust treatment is warranted. And that's what reparations is all about. Let's understand the truth of the past, what was really done. Why were Black people worth more than all the railroads and all of the industrial units in America in 1855? Why did it require bloodshed? We just celebrated the 161st anniversary of the execution of John Brown.
That's right.
December 7th, 1859. The same week, when I say celebrate, I mean commemorate.
Right.
Commemorated the execution of Fred Hampton. They go hand in hand. The killing of John Brown, the killing of Fred Hampton in Chicago. Right. Both of them bearing witness to a deep love for Black people. One was vanilla, one was chocolate. Deep love for Black people. Right. But the chronic institutionalized forms of white supremacy are still grinding and crushing folk. From 1859 to 2020, you see. And that's what we have to be honest about. And we're honest about it, not in the sense of fetishizing it, you see, because the white supremacy has been so vicious that the Black middle class can use it as a weapon for their upward mobility as they turn their backs on Black, poor, and working people. So they can invoke the racism that's so vicious and then look for the benefit to them rather than the benefit for everybody.
That's it.
And that's where we are now in terms of this class issue. That's why any talk about identity, racial identity, sexual gender identity, national identity, if it's not rooted in spiritual and moral integrity that's tied to a witness of solidarity for the least of these, it is sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. It is too empty and vacuous. That's what neoliberal talk about diversity is. So that you end up with a more colorful predatory capitalism. You end up with a more diverse American imperialism. So you walk around thinking you woke. No, you ain't woke. That's just one eye that you got open. Echo yourself.
Hey, Dr. West, what you say? Defund the police, but you got black police. Well, what
And
about the black
know
police?
the racism within their own departments. Some of them conform, some of them do not, because you can always keep track of individual choice, right? Anytime you talk about a larger group, you got persons who make decisions over against the group. You know, Martin Luther King Jr. was a petty bourgeois Negro preacher coming out of a petty bourgeois Negro school, a Morehouse. But he decided to do what? To love everyday people.
Right.
That's the best of Morehouse. Eddie Glaude's another, but we can go on and on. That's the best of Morehouse. You know what I mean? W.B. Du Bois, another petty bourgeois Negro coming out of Harvard University, ruling class institution of the American Empire, crushing more Negroes than he can ever count. But Du Bois says what? I'm going another way. I'm following truth and justice, you see. And so it is some of those police. They can go another way. They can tell the truth about the cultural silence. They can tell the truth about the ways in which the blue too often degrades and dishonors black people. They can tell the truth about the institutionalized practices. People make a choice. And this is true for everybody. It's true. It's true. So that's why they asked Malcolm X, can white folk join your organization of Afro-American Unity? What did he say when he got off that plane? He said John Brown could. John Brown, if you meet that level of spiritual and moral greatness in terms of loving black folk, you can join my organization even if you can't sing in tune or if you're offbeat sometimes. That's all right. Come in and join this organization.
You said if they on the 1 and 3 instead of the 2 and 4. Go ahead, Marcus.
Hey, so Dr. West, I'm not certain how long we got you, but I do want to do something real quick. Clickbaity political thirst trap.
I'll stay on as long as y'all like. How long is the show today?
To 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock. Yeah. So about another 30 minutes.
Lord, now, I
you can't stay that long.
I don't want to intrude. I'll stay till 10 if you like.
No, you're not intruding at all.
Oh,
intrude. Hey, you mean inspired? You mean inspired by?
Bro, we might, but I'm afraid we might go over into some roasting or something that like we don't want the professor to have to stick around for all our shenanigans, though, right?
No, we can be good for an hour. Dr. West, if you wouldn't mind, real quick, just Trap Squad. Listen, we brought Dr. West on here for you guys, and we ain't at 1,000 likes. So, like, I would like for y'all folks to actually like stop what you're doing unless you're driving a car and get the likes up on Facebook, get the likes up on YouTube, right? You can follow us at Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap on Patreon. See Thirst Trap on Twitter and Instagram, and Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap on Instagram and Facebook. Dr. West, thank you for joining us. I'm happy you're gonna kick it with us for a little while longer. My question is sort of the gatekeeper class that you've talked about, that you kind of touched on. I personally think that they're the most dangerous thing to the current black person, right? Because it's the person who keeps you from your freedom, not the person. I think this, like I think the house Negro is the person who's the most dangerous because he's gonna tell all of our plans to our real oppressor. So my question to you is, during the next 8 years, basically during the next administration, we're going to see a new type of black gatekeeper, especially when you're dealing with a white man that's at the top of the show. We're going to start seeing more folks kind of step and fetch it. But I'd like to get your thoughts on the gatekeeper going forward from 2020 to 2024.
Well, I think the kind of thing that you all have been doing becomes more crucial than ever, which is just keep the truth and justice at the center, keep the pressure on, and put a spotlight on folk who are just posing and posturing. That's crucial.
Facts.
That's very, very important. Raising those voices. I mean, what has happened is, the anthem of black folk lift every voice, and we got too many echoes out here. Folk confusing their echo for a voice. Well, no. A copy is not an original. A voice is an original. Don't nobody sound like Luther.
Do y'all notice how he say stuff and it takes us about 2.5 seconds for us to get it, and then we all at the same time be like,
It's 5 seconds for me. I'm slow. And so I have to.
Because you could collectively hear.
Huh?
You could collectively hear
Oh!
when we all got it. It's like a chain reaction. I'm sorry, Professor West.
No,
Continue.
but this question is so very important because what is happening is, you see, we had sleepwalking after Brother Obama, the first and second terms, because people were just so seduced by the very reality of having a brilliant, handsome black man in the White House running the American empire. Now, people are more likely to want to raise more substantive questions, that the symbol itself doesn't have the same weight and gravitas that it did. So that with all the black folk, they got the sister vice president and so forth and so on, UN and what have you, people saying, well, we got through all of these first now, and all this diversity and inclusion. Oh, Lord, have mercy. We must really be doing better. Then they look around at their conditions and say, the thing's worse than ever. All that black power at the top is not translating into black freedom at the bottom. Something is wrong. So it must be the system. Must be the system. It can't just be the individuals in it. Then you say, no, it's not just individuals. You got classes in there. You got classes that are benefiting. Wall Street is benefiting. Pentagon's benefiting. Too many times the slices of the black bourgeoisie, the black middle class is benefiting. I mean, look at what happened in this summer. You got the largest protest demonstrations in the history of the American empire. The history of the American empire. What was the response of corporate America? Millions and millions and millions of dollars were given to black people. Where'd that money go?
To a few.
That's the question y'all ask. You see?
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Millions were given.
Oh, you guys gotta
Where'd it
forgive me.
go?
I'm having a really
Where'd it
hard
go?
time with these.
Who's benefiting from it? Did the masses benefit from it? Did you see any new infrastructures and new institutions? Did you see any interventions in the lives of our precious black, poor, and working people? Did you see any attempts to break the back of mass incarceration? Did you see any new schools and new housing and so forth? No. Then where did it go? Well, then you had to have an analysis and just to line them all up. All these so the black middle class just were overwhelmed with all this money at the top. And the black masses don't get nothing. It's just like in the 1960s. The only reason why I'm sitting here at Harvard right now is because of over 200 rebellions that took place that shook the foundations of America, that created opportunities for black middle class folk to gain access, or black middle class, black poor people who were able to gain access and became black middle class. Because that's me. I grew up in Glen Ellen. So that from the very beginning, I didn't start off, but I gained access to it.
Right.
Never forget the debt that I owe to my precious black brothers and sisters. Some of them in jail, some of them killed, some of them forgotten, because it was their struggle. All the laws of the Congress of 64 and 65 didn't do what they did to open these opportunities, because that's how the system responds. It doesn't respond by rewarding the people who are really responsible for it at the bottom. It rewards by the middle class folk at the top. So it ends up co-opting them, bringing them in as examples of success. I say, I don't want to be no goddamn black success. I want to be a great human being who's spiritual and moral and follow Jesus and say, I'm going to bear witness of a truth of folk catching hell and those who are part of the wretched of the earth. That's a calling. That's different. That's different. That's a different way of being in the world. That's where our musicians are. Marvin Gaye could have been sounding like Frank Sinatra. He even tried it out for a year or two. He said, no, I'm Marvin, god dang it. I'm going to sound like Marvin.
That's it.
That's right.
That's it.
Tell me, Terrell said, come on, I got some Ashford and Simpson songs for you, baby. We going to sing it together. Ain't nothing like the real thing.
Real thing, baby. That's
Heaven
it.
So let me ask you what seems like abstract, but it's definitely a part of like the way I think about like everything in life. And I was too young when I first read this book, but I read it again on a couple anniversaries. I know there's a new anniversary release. I'm talking about you name Wretched of the Earth, and Franz Fanon automatically made me think about Paulo Freire, because I hate reading one of them without the other one. So tell me what you think about like I'm trying to divorce words that I feel like people gave us to trick us, and some of those words are like minorities, black people, like like lower class or whatever. And I'm just saying oppressed, because when every time I say I fall into this oppressed group, it reminds people that somebody's oppressing us, and it doesn't let white people. And I'm talking about whiteness, not people in general, but just whiteness, the ideal of white supremacy off the hook. So how do you think rethinking our pedagogy as it pertains to oppressed folk around this world, or wretched folk, I should say, how do you think that's been missing from our current movement? I do want to applaud these young folk and their fire, because it's real, but I feel like that scope of understanding that words are so powerful, and we need to tie ourselves back to the thinking of Paulo Freire and all of those folk who's been ostracized by white schooling.
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I used to spend a lot of time with Paulo, man. We used to bring him to New York. Yeah. Every year. We brought him and Miles Horton, the great Miles Horton, the Vanilla brother who was founder of Highlander Center, who was there. Rosa Parks was 3 months there. She was there 3 months before she stood up for justice by sitting down on the bus. And Bell Hooks, they all go together. Bell Hooks, Paulo Freire, Miles Horton. Great educators for liberation. And for me, even when we use the word oppressed, sometimes that's a little too abstract. See, I talk about those who have been hated, terrorized, traumatized, stigmatized, and exploited. You see what I mean? So it's even more concrete. Oppressed people think, oh, everybody's oppressed. I feel kind of oppressed now, sipping my tea. Right. Well, okay. Right. All right. Okay. Okay. It's true. Everybody got catastrophes in their life. You know what I mean? We understand.
Yeah.
Ruling class got to deal with the death of their mamas too. You know what I mean? And that's catastrophe. So that's real. That's human. Wow. But no, when you have been chronically hated, when you have been chronically terrorized, linguistically, economically, politically, psychically, spiritually, then you're in a war. And see, part of the problem is, Black people, we have always been in a war. That's why we used to come in my church, Shiloh Baptist Church. We are soldiers in the army. We got to fight, although we got to cry. We got to hold up the bloodstained banner. We got to hold it up.
Until we die.
My mama was a soldier. My father was a soldier.
Come on,
my grandmama and granddaddy were a soldier. They understood there was a war going on, spiritual war. Sap the fire of the young people. Make sure their music is dumbed down so they don't have a soundtrack for their struggle. Make sure they don't have sources of self-respect and self-belief and self-confidence, so they walk around looking to be approved by somebody who look different than them all the time, thinking that to be human is to somehow get patted on the back by some white establishment, so you become the darling for other Black people as you go off and live in your mansion in some vanilla suburb. Hey, that ain't no Black freedom struggle. That's Black inclusion strategy that downplays the plight and predicament of those who are being hated and terrorized and traumatized every day here and around the world. And that's the greatness of our struggle. That most of our geniuses have been attuned to that kind of terror and that trauma. That's where jazz comes from. That's what spirituals come from. That's what rhythm and blues comes from. That's where hip hop comes from. They all get commodified. They all get sanitized, but the roots come from those kinds of realities with Black genius and Black talent, and most importantly, Black love. And you all, we talked about this last time. Black love is a crime in a white supremacist civilization.
Man, come on. Wow. Right. Black love is a crime in a white supremacist
Anybody who loves Black people deeply and tells the truth will undergo character and literal assassination in a white supremacist society. So when folk are coming at you with character assassination, and you say to yourself, well, must Jesus bear the cross alone and all the world go free? No, there's a cross for everyone, and there's a cross for me.
The consecrated cross I'll bear. Yes. To death shall set me free.
That's it.
Come on, somebody.
when you loving the folk who hate it, you're gonna be oftentimes trashed by them. So what?
So
You
what?
never love black people in order for black people to love you back. You love black people because they're worthy of being loved.
Come on.
This ain't no quid pro quo transactional thing. So what? Malcolm X had a 4% approval rating when he died. Who cared? Who cares? We know the love in Malcolm. So what? Martin Luther King Jr. had 55% disapproval in the black community because he came out against Vietnam and trying to bring poor people together. We know the love in Martin. So what? Love Supreme couldn't sell as many copies as he wanted. We know the love in Coltrane's horn.
That's it. That's it.
That's right.
We know the love in James Cleveland's voice.
Man.
We know the love in Aretha's soul. So what? Gerald Levert couldn't cross over and sell as many records as Milli Vanilli. And Milli Vanilli won 2 Grammys and Sam Cooke never won one.
Come on.
I got
Stone never won one. Curtis Mayfield never won one. Give them to Milli Vanilli. So what? We keep track of the love. We got different lens through which we view the world.
My mind.
And the church said, "Amen." Oh my goodness.
And amen again.
Amen. Amen again.
That's the greatness of our people.
Wow. Wow.
That's
Wow.
what keeps us going. If they
Dr.
can't
West-
understand Richard Pryor's jokes, so what?
So what?
So what? That's Miles Davis's song with Pee Wee. So what? And the same so what because dun becomes the basis of Cold Sweat.
That's it.
The same brother who wrote it, Pee Wee.
Come on, Dr. West.
So
That-
what? He wrote that on a bus from New York going to Cincinnati. And they had one microphone. They had to have Maceo play his solo on that one microphone right there in King's studio in Cincinnati with James Brown. That's Pee Wee Ellis and James Brown. Cold Sweat, April 1967, creates a whole major shift in time.
Wow. Wow.
So much funk that the world wasn't ready for it. That's the genius from Barnwell, South Carolina, named James Brown, working with a jazz musician, Pee Wee, connected to Miles Davis, the son of a dentist of East St. Louis. That's the greatness of our people.
My mind.
I was gonna say, Professor West, like listening to you talk about the political truth, the truth about white supremacy and American imperialism and capitalism. That's one thing, but when you start dropping the truth about the musical history of our culture, wow. I mean, that just takes it to a whole nother level, and how intertwined our culture, the soulfulness of our music is with our struggle. And you just always put that out there. I just want to read a couple of comments from the comment section. People have been enjoying you thoroughly. A lot of love for you, the truth bombs. All through the whole conversation, people have been saying truth bombs. They've been saying preach, Professor West. One person said, they said you saved Neo in the Matrix, so we got to keep that in mind. They said that in the chat room. I love it. We can't listen. My brother heard I was doing this interview with. We were doing this interview with you. He said you got to mention the Matrix, and I had forgot about it, but somebody else in the chat room brought it up. So there you go. One person had a question that they asked a couple of times, and they really want you to answer this. And they said, "What politician, if any, do you see that people should put their energy behind?" I think that question you can help them out with.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'd mentioned Harold Washington. I'd mentioned Adam Powell. I could mention Shirley Chisholm. There've been some magnificent politicians in the past. In the present, it's hard to find, because Congress these days is a site of legalized bribery and normalized corruption. So it's very difficult to find folk who have not already been colonized by the big money donors and benefactors. But there are some decent ones, but none really jump out, really. I mean, of course, I spent 2 magnificent campaigns with Brother Bernie Sanders, and he's not perfect, but he refuses to get caught in that money game. And he's got that critique of Wall Street that's important. But he would be one. Well, now with the squad, though, just Rashida, though. I spent time with her.
I love that sister.
Rashida's strong. I hope Bowman's going to be strong, Brother Jamal. I did come out and support him as well.
Corey
We
Bush. How about Corey Bush?
Corey, Sister Corey, he's going to be strong. Absolutely. We got to keep the pressure on Sister AOC. They're putting a whole lot of pressure on her in terms of celebrity status. And that celebrity status, is a very, very,
Intoxicating
very slick thing. It's you got to watch yourself. You got to watch yourself. You can use anything for justice and for truth, but the celebrity status has a way of trying to transform you on the inside.
My mind.
So you end up with a very, very narrow conception of the world. That's one of the things you see in Brother Barack's books. He doesn't even realize the degree to which he revealed himself.
Come on.
To be so captive to Wall Street greed and Pentagon militarism and celebrity status and mainstream streamlined sensibility. So the things that he writes, he doesn't even realize that he's disclosing something about himself that is just so sad. You almost feel sorry for the brother. It's like, good God Almighty, somebody who you thought was going to, end up really.
Can I ask you about that though? Can I ask you because I mean, for a lot of black folks, Barack is the epitome of black excellence, right? And we find ourselves. I take no joy in having to criticize the first black president, but I mean, we got to be consistent, like you said. If they found some war crimes in the Bush, if you saw war crimes in the Bush administration, you sure as hell saw them in the Obama administration. What do we do? What do we do with that celebrity culture that has seized America in general, but the black community specifically as it pertains to someone who is upholding a system, Barack Obama, upholding a system that's detrimental to our own well-being?
Yeah, I mean, one is we always, we proceed on the notion now that everyday black people have insight. They're not stupid. And they are absolutely right. I tell them every time I'm in a context, and I tell it with my brothers when I teach in prison. Usually they already got the critique going, but no, he does represent black excellence in the form of success in the system.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Right.
And I say, you know what? Our black freedom movement has never been fundamentally geared for just success in the system. It is for the liberation and the freedom of everyday people. So that you got difference between greatness. See, somewhere I read biblically, he or she is greatest among you will be your servant. It doesn't say he or she is greatest among you will be the most successful with a place in Martha's Vineyard. That's not what the Bible said. He or she is greatest among you will be your servant. And people serve in different ways with the gift that they have. And so that when it comes to success, Barack Obama is the successful black person in the history of black America. Absolutely. And it takes something to be successful.
Yeah.
And you understand that success. But success itself is a golden calf. It is an idol. And when you worship the golden calf, especially when you conceive of life as a gold rush, you're going to end up worshiping the golden calf. But the last thing you want is to worship an idol, success. And that's part of what Jeremiah Wright had in mind. When Jeremiah Wright said, "Goddamn America," he was quoting from William James.
Right.
William James wrote an essay criticizing the United States and the Philippines. They killed over 500,000 brothers and sisters in the Philippines in the 1890s. Hollywood ain't made no movie about that. No, they made a movie about that. But what William James said, "Goddamn America for its vile actions in the Philippines." It's right there in William James's work. He was quoting from William James. We got a building named for him right down the street here at Harvard. He's the most powerful, adorable, lovable public philosopher in the history of the country. But he was vice president of the Anti-Imperialist American League with Mark Twain. But he also called success the goddess of America. That's William James. It's worshipped by America. It's fundamentally a culture that worships success. So that we tell our black people, you are rightly, elevating the highest level of black success. Fine. That's not greatness. That's not service to the least of these. That's why he's different than Malcolm and Martin and Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer. They were great. He was successful. Those are different things. And you just lay that out to folks and say, okay, if your whole life is going to be just being successful, then go on and you're going to see how empty that is.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get
Hey,
all
Doctor.
the status and the pleasure in the world, and your soul's going to be empty, and your heart is going to be more and more cold and indifferent.
Wow.
Dr. West, we're about to close this thing out. We only got a couple more minutes left in the stream, and I just want to thank you for showing up again. I kind of want to do this and leave folks on a high note, but the question I ask you might end up not being necessarily a high note, and that is this right here. In my opinion, Barack Obama and James Clyburn could have embraced what the black folks on the streets were saying, right? And explain to white America, instead of trying to explain to black America why something is bad, explain to white America exactly what defund the police means, right? Like, because once Barack Obama says this is what defund the police means, nobody in America has the excuse of not knowing what does it mean anymore, right? That's how you use your platform.
Your power.
That makes
He got
sense,
that bully pulpit. You
right? He got the bully pulpit. He could have helped us out. So, and I'm trying to figure out two things as you can make your kind of final statements going forward in the future. When white folks who watch us, black folks, all the people in the Clickbaity Trap Squad universe watches us, when they hear sort of a establishment black person talk about blackness and what we should be saying, how should they think and what should they know? And this is for a novice, not for brothers like us who kind of understand exactly what's going on behind. But how do we break down the Obama-ish kind of blind loyalty to anything that Obama or Clyburn or establishment black person says? How do they register it without the Harvard mindset? All right, like how do they register what these folks say and figure out whether they're telling the truth or not?
Yeah, I think again the difference between the real thing that flows from a heart, mind, and soul that's fundamentally concerned about the least of these.
Yeah.
What are they saying about the prisoners? What are they saying about poor folk in hoods and barrios? You see, why is it they don't talk about poverty the way William Barber does and the others? You see, it's the lens through which you view the world. Any great artist, any great person sees the world and feels the world and acts in the world in such a way that others feel that they're missing out on what is seen and felt and acted. You see? So that once you allow people to see things that people hadn't seen before, you see, and they feel much deeper and they act more courageously, they become examples that shatter people's sleepwalking.
Wow.
They shatter people's sleepwalking. And that's a way of liberating people. They liberate their souls. The truth shall set you free.
That's it.
What you see is going to be different. And that's the difference between genius and talent. See, talent can hit the bullseye over and over again. And genius can hit a bullseye that nobody else can see. That's Louis Armstrong.
That's Louis Armstrong.
He hits a high C so high, reflecting on the death of his mama in West End blues, that people playing the trumpet didn't understand the note was in the horn.
Yeah.
Louis hit something that people didn't even see. Everybody else hitting it so nice, but a lower note. Curtis Mayfield only playing on the black keys that he learned from his grandmama when he drops out of 8th grade. But 3 colleges go through him playing on those black keys with all of that genius coming through his soul. He's seeing something others can't see. And he can make you feel something that others can't make you feel. And you end up acting courageously in a way that surprise yourself. Hey, that's who we are at our best.
Yes,
What
sir.
it is to be
Man,
a black man and a black woman.
and a black woman.
Ah,
Dr. West, close us out. Close us out by answering a couple questions, or not a couple questions, saying a couple things about the fact that we pride ourselves in this country on, Ivy Tower educations and not the education of poor people to survive. The genius to survive in America as a poor, poverty-stricken person is a genius that everybody should know, because that's about living in a world of too much and you not
yeah.
having enough. So
Oh, yeah.
especially when we find more of our people hungrier now than the Great Depression. So speak to us about that and then close us out.
Yeah, but one is, I would tell folks, you need to watch this show.
Yes.
This show is education for adults.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Stanley Cavell's definition of philosophy. Education for adults. And what is
Mm.
education? 3 pillars. The formation of attention. You got to attend to the things that others are not attending to, so you can see things others don't see. It's about the cultivation of critical consciousness, to think critically for yourself in light of attending to the suffering that other people are overlooking. And then the last one is the maturation of a soul. You learn how to love so intensely, so deeply, that you put a smile on the eyes of these brothers' face when they plan a caravan of love. It starts all the way from the continent and ends up in Teaneck, New Jersey. And that caravan of love embraces the attention, it embraces the critical consciousness, but it also embraces an overflow of giving everything inside of you. You know that line from Curtis Mayfield that he wrote for Gene Chandler, "Just be true. Just be true. I've given you all of me and plan to give even more."
That's
baby.
it.
Now he gonna give all of him
And then
then
give more.
even
Give
more.
more. That's right.
Because
That's
he's
right.
a love warrior.
Hmm.
Because he's a freedom fighter. You give everything.
And then some
Everything. Like
more.
Jesus on the cross. Just give everything and want to give even more if you could.
That's right.
That's the greatness of a people, you see, at our best. We got to hold up that bloodstained banner.
We gotta hold it up. you know, Dr. West, if you start a church hymn, if you start a scripture, anything like that, I'm gonna have to end it, because I think everybody on this call grew up in the church tradition, the Black radical tradition. Dr. West, it has been a tremendous honor. It has been a tremendous honor to have you in with us for this entire hour and a half. And I know everyone who's watching obviously knows who you are, but just tell them what about your most recent project and where they can find it, and then we're going to sign off.
Well, no, I want them to read y'all's text. I want them to come to this show. I mean, it's much less about me. You know what I mean? I'm mama's child, daddy's kid, trying to bear witness in the best way that I know.
Yes,
but
sir.
the crucial thing is what the younger generation is doing. Y'all gonna take this thing to a level that the world has not seen, built on the best of what we tried to bequeath to you all. And that's the beautiful thing. Just keep that joy in your soul. You know what I mean? Find joy in telling the truth, joy in struggle, and always have a joy that the world can't take away. You can never crush it. Keep that fire that never be dampened. And keep that smile and that style, that black style.
Yes.
That the world might want to imitate, but can never in any way approximate. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, man. This has been another episode of Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap. We're going to bask in this. This is the end of the episode, but I want everyone to just bask in it for the rest of the day. Thank you, Professor West. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Love you now.
It has been our pleasure. Thanks, everybody. You all have a great day. Be safe out there. Wear your mask and love somebody, and we'll see you next time.